Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here for WeAreChange.org. And after the events in Helsinki, we have to discuss the reality of that summit and not just the impeach Trump hashtags and the Treason Summit hashtags that supposedly went viral as establishment hacks in both the government and intelligence agencies attacked Trump for even meeting with Putin.
I think it was disgraceful that American flags were on the stage for this summit because an American president was not. The job of the American president is to protect the American people first. That's the first job of the American president, and this president has chosen again to side with Russia.
Senator McCain says today's press conference in Helsinki was one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in memory. The damage inflicted by President Trump's naivete, egotism, false equivalence, and sympathy for autocrats is difficult to calculate, but it is clear that the summit in Helsinki was a tragic mistake.
I actually went to the thesaurus to try to capture phraseology that would describe what I witnessed today at this unbelievable news conference. And I think the president reflected his incompetence and his naivete and his gullibility with President Putin, in the presence of President Putin and before the whole world. And he is aiding and abetting our arch adversary and has failed, in my mind, to live up to his constitutional obligations and responsibilities.
Now, Rand Paul, of course, took a different approach and actually took people like Clapper and Brennan to task.
I think what's hard is that when you look at our intelligence community over the last several years, it was led by people who've turned out to be rank partisans and frankly, dissemblers and liars. I mean, James Clapper came to support the Senate and perjured himself. He committed one of the biggest lies of a head of intelligence have committed in recent times. He said, we're not collecting all this information on every American. It turns out, yes, that's exactly what they were doing.
But Senator Dan Coates is on.
But I would also put it in perspective. I think we have gone a little deranged as far as over the top on this thing. Dov Levine looked at this from the Carnegie Mellon University, and he looked at for between 1946 and 2000, and he said there were 81 instances of the U.S. meddling in elections.
You say that 81 times in 60 countries between 1946, let's put this up on the screen, I think we've got a list, 1946 and the year 2000, the U.S. has sought to influence the outcome of an election.
I find that about 2/3 of these type of things were covert.
He even discussed what he called Trump derangement syndrome.
Some on the Democrat side, I think, are just so crazy in their hatred of Trump. Look at John Brennan. John Brennan's out there calling the president a traitor. John Brennan was in charge of collecting information on every American, on every person in the world. He had this tremendous power to spy on the entire world, and now it turns out he's a deranged Trump hater. That should concern us and make us think that we need to have checks and balances on our intelligence community, because this is just too much power for people like James Clapper and John Brennan to have that kind of power. Scares me to death.
And it should come as no surprise that Rand Paul plans on visiting Russia in the future. After all, he believes in peace talks, and he thinks the president does too.
You know what? Maybe the president honestly wants less conflict in the world and less likelihood of war, and I believe that to be true.
So what are the things that the media is refusing to discuss about this meeting? What was important? What got by most people? Well, for starters, it should be noted that both President Trump and Vladimir Putin met with Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, prior to this meeting. And in doing so, it seems there's now a resolution where Iran will leave Syria and end their involvement in the conflict.
We've worked with Israel long and hard for many years, many decades. I think we've never has any country been closer than we are. President Putin also is helping Israel, and we both spoke with Bibi Netanyahu, and they would like to do certain things with respect to Syria, having to do with the safety of Israel. But I think that working with Israel is a great thing, and creating safety for Israel is something that both President Putin and I would like to see very much.
And it should be no surprise that this was being discussed as Israel was firing missiles at the Golan Heights region just this Sunday. Now, Putin also addressed a man named William Browder, who he accused of funneling $400 million to the Hillary Clinton campaign through intelligence officials.
For instance, we can bring up Mr. Browder in this particular case. Business associates of Mr. Browder, they sent a huge amount of money, 400 million, as a contribution to the campaign of Hillary Clinton. Solid reason to believe that some intelligence officers accompanied and guided these transactions.
To Mr. Browder's credit, he subsequently denied this.
He leveled an accusation at you that you funneled and helped funnel lots of money to Hillary Clinton, did you?
I did not. I did not. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I don't live in the United States. I've been living in Britain for 29 years. I make no campaign contributions, and so that's not true. I should also point out that Vladimir Putin and his regime have accused me of serial killing, of being a CIA MI6 agent, and about 1,000 other things.
Putin even talked about the U.S. judicial system and explained how that should have the last word, and not people like George Soros.
Take George Soros, for instance, with multi-billion capitals, but does that make him his position, his posture, the posture of the United States? No, it does not.
Putin also cited a treaty from 1999 in which he would allow Mueller and his team of investigators to come over and be part of an investigation of the 12 people who have now been indicted by the FBI, who they claim started DC leaks and other online personas.
We can actually permit official representatives of the United States, including the members of this very commission headed by Mr. Mueller, we can let them into the country and they will be present at this questioning.
Subsequently, Trump said that this was an incredible offer, but he didn't think that the Mueller team would do it.
And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer.
So they have a treaty where they work together with the United States, because everyone said we don't have an extradition treaty, but they have a treaty where they work together. And his prosecutors would prosecute it, and he said that Robert Mueller's people could go with them, but they probably won't want to.
Yeah. Of course, in return for this, he would like his intelligence officers to be able to come over and investigate the people he believes helped Browder give $400 million to Hillary Clinton.
Then we would expect that the Americans would reciprocate and they would question officials, including the officers of law enforcement and intelligence services of the United States, whom we believe are who have something to do with illegal actions on the territory of Russia. And we have to request the presence of our law enforcement.
We have to realize extraditions are off the table, and even people like Darrell Issa know this.
The calls for extradition are absurd. They're not going to happen. We don't extradite our spies when they get alleged or even caught doing things, and vice versa. Having said that, I want to see those the information of those indictments go forward. The fact that they'll never be brought to justice doesn't change the fact that we should know more about what we believe they did and how they did it. And that's where I stand, is let's flesh this out and see if it's real. Let's remember that we're more than a year into an investigation that claims there was that there was collusion with the Russians without a shred of evidence there was.
The probe is a disaster for our country. I think it's kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it. People are being brought out to the fore. So far that I know, virtually none of it related to the campaign. Zero collusion. And it has had a negative impact upon the relationship of the two largest nuclear powers in the world.
As to who is to be believed and to who is not to be believed, You can trust no one if you take this. Where did you get this idea that President Trump trusts me or I trust him? He defends the interest of the United States of America, and I do defend the interest of the Russian Federation. We should be guided by facts. Could you name a single fact that would definitively prove the collusion? This is utter nonsense.
Despite important issues being discussed and diplomatic relations resuming to somewhat normal now with Russia, the media and opportunistic politicians continue to push a fear-mongering agenda. And this is while a president said some pretty impressive things to me, such as this.
I would rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace than to risk peace in pursuit of politics.
And I completely agree. Peace over politics every single time. Again, I'm not on the Trump train, but in this case, I think the right decisions have been made. As always, if you like this video, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And folks, be the change you want to see in the world.